Well,
that's not an argument, it's a statement. Have I heard of a medical condition? Yes.
It's implying an argument.
Well, would you care to actually make it? Because
Sure.
at the moment,
It's the idea that people, to this very day, people hear voices in their heads, and it can be quite articulate. It could be actually beautiful, or it could be absolute nonsense. And people write it down. People become prophets, make cults, and they claim it's from the divine source. This happens often. So for me, I would need very sure evidence that he wasn't schizophrenic, for example, because it's something that happens to people.
Tell me about the medical condition of schizophrenia, the proper medical condition of schizophrenia, not the layman's kind of stereotype of what schizophrenia means. Well, what does schizophrenia actually mean as a medical condition?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't. Oh, right, so I have to be able to absolutely define it via the medical dictionary for my arguments invalid?
Because I'm aware that doctors often complain that schizophrenia, the way it's properly understood, is not the actual medical condition. It's a kind of a layman's
Okay. So, well, considering we're both laymen in this regard, we could talk about the phenomena that we do know is that some people do hear voices in their heads. It's indisputable.
Right. Well, Muhammad didn't hear voices in his head. That's not what our sources say. The sources say in the earliest incident, the Archangel Gabriel came to him, and in fact, wherever he looked on the horizon, he saw Gabriel.
This a hallucination.
Well, that's what you may believe, but
no, I don't. Maybe it happened. I actually think there's other realms other than this one. So,
you do?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think this is infinitely
you're halfway
complex.
there to Islam then, because that's exactly what.
There's a lot more objections, but
that's what we believe, that there are. It's called the unseen realm. So, and the Quran talks about it. Sort of back from the beginning, it talks about those who believe in the unseen realm. The book of the Quran is for those who believe in the unseen. So God speaks about the unseen realm to us. He provides information. He says there are angels, there are jinn, there are things we can't see that go on. Why should we know everything and be able to see everything? As I'm sure
I'm very along with that idea because it's so complex and we've got limited perception.
And the explanation, if you like, of God as an explanation is a very powerful one. Increasingly so. It's not that science is retreating from this as an explanation. It's becoming more and more likely, given what we understand about the material world, that they create an intelligence which exists, I think.
I'm open to the possibility, by the way. I'm not a hard atheist or a hard rationalist either. I'm open to the possibility of that. My main objections is when people want to bring things forward as it is the absolute unquestioned, undoubtable truth. I understand why that occurs for the sociological perspective towards organising society, but I have issues with it philosophically.
But coming back to the schizophrenic thing, you see, I don't doubt there have been some mad people who proclaim themselves to be messengers or prophets or ecstatic seers and visionaries.
Yeah, right.
In fact, even in the Prophet's own time, I mean, he feared that because he had seen Gabriel, that he might be one of them. He says in Ibn Ishaq, the earliest biography of Muhammad, he rushed back to Khadija, his first wife, and saying, I don't want to become like one of these despised ecstatics who have visions.
Right.
And she assured him that he wasn't, because, and there were several reasons that she gave, that he was, that God was good and would not do that to a man like Muhammad, who was honest and truthful, a man of integrity.
But God would do it to another type of man.
Wouldn't do it to him, because he wouldn't deceive him, because he was an honourable and good man. Then they went to a guy called Waraka, who was a Christian scribe, who actually heard what happened to Muhammad, and the Christian scribe said, you have been visited by the same spirit, we call it, by Gabriel, who visited Moses. And he actually identified, so he was tying it into previous revelation against the prophets before, Moses. So I think that's a wonderful way of putting it, that the same power, the same force, the same angel that revealed itself to Muhammad was the same, had previously visited Jesus and Moses and other prophets. So it wasn't just a random thing.
Right.
So I thought you were going to say about Joseph Smith and the Mormons. Well, what about them? Why don't it's the same thing?
Yeah.
Because that would be the opposite example. Because what Mormons believe, as far as I understand it, is so different, radically different from what Jesus taught and Moses taught and Muhammad taught. They believe in many, many gods. They believe that God lives on a planet, I kid you not, with his wife in the universe. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but go and check it out.
Well, here's another idea, because I want to interject so we have a proper discussion.
We don't believe that. Jesus never taught that, Moses never taught that.
That's fine.
He's a false prophet.
What I do want to say is something else that's interesting is this. is that you say it's ludicrous that the idea that God's a man on a planet with a wife.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at it from another.
God's not a man.
Let's look at it from another perspective. Is that for when I hear people talking about God and the attributes of God, and then I read or hear people telling me this is the words of God, talking about the acts of man, and telling him to do things, telling him not to do things, and it seemingly being angry and wrathful in certain situations and giving blessings and giving forgiveness in other situations, it seems that God embodies the attributes of man, right? Why would God have vengeance? This is an attribute of man.
I see.
Why would God have mercy? This is an attribute of man. Should it not surpass these petty things?
It's precisely the other way around. That mercy, at the beginning of every chapter of the Quran, apart from one, it says, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate.
I'm aware.
Good. So the point is that we as created beings, if you like, participate or actualize in a very tiny way in relationships with other people, mercy and compassion. And we're told to do so by the Quran. If you read the Quran over and over again, it says, give charity, care for the poor, the disadvantaged, don't swindle your neighbour, be good to the widow, be good to the orphan. Over and over.
It says some other stuff too, though, right? It says some a little bit less savoury stuff too, right? As the other books also do.
There is talk about war and conduct in war, but what I'm talking about, the overall character of the Quran is full of spiritual nourishment, spiritual.
Can I comment? I read the first 70 pages of the Quran, in fact, and I stopped on almost every. Well, I'm not going to be able to. I can't quote anything, but the first thing that I noticed from it was it was very, very insistent on giving me a big list of who's going to hell.
There's no list of anyone's going to hell in the Quran.
Yeah, come on.
No,
don't need to play word games with me, man.
No,
I'm trying to say it says
there's no list of people going to hell in the Quran.
I'm not saying there is.
I thought you just
I'm saying whatever, man. Fuck it, I'm out.
Can I speak with you?
So what happened there? So he's making accusations about the Quran which aren't true. So end of story. Why do you walk off?
Of ideas.
Said it read 70 pages and it has lists of people who are going to hell, and I said no, it doesn't.
That's not what I said.
Walked off.
Look, this is why I'm not going to talk to you, bro. I'm not continuing the convo. I'm not continuing the convo. I'm not continuing the convo.
Why?
Because I don't want to. I don't think it's productive.
I mean, it's meaningless if we have wordplays instead of actually trying
But it wasn't
to
wordplay.
discern
He was making claims
the
about
meaning
the
of the
Quran,
question that we're talking about.
when challenged about, he ran off.
Ain't got truth. Who has truth?
No, I'm saying if you have truth, then why can't you continue the convo?
No, because I have ideas. I don't have truth.
I know, so let's discuss the ideas.
I'm not, but I want to do it with somebody I'm able to have a decent discussion.
You can't. We've
It's
been having
hard
a
to
decent
discuss
conversation
something
for
when
half
the
an
other
hour.
person keeps.
We've been having a
falling back and
conversation
keeps
for
running
half
away
an
from
hour.
the question.
Has it been a good discussion? Last half an hour, 30 minutes.
Yes.
Right.
But things can terminate.
But why do you terminate a good discussion?
I already gave you my rationale.
Okay.
I don't need to justify
I don't know.
myself to
I
anybody.
wasn't listening to the whole conversation. I just listened partially.
Right. Okay.
But what I do know is that sometimes people try to go around the question without actually answering any of the questions you're asking.
If he is saying, which he is, that people get sent to hell in the Quran, he's absolutely right. It does say that. And there is that actions. There are some actions in this life that will be punished by hell in the afterlife. And you mentioned, I want to pick up on what you were saying about vengeance, God of vengeance. Justice is a very important point in the Quran. He's turning his back on it.
Yeah, but look, isn't it?
Sorry, if I just the vengeance. I'll just address the camera. If he's now reading
he's
himself
just
over
tired.
there.
I can understand him. I can
So
understand.
he was saying about God being a God of vengeance, but it's all to do with justice and retribution. It's not a capricious attack. So it's a shame that he's run away like that. And
He's not running away, man.
he's over there now.
Bro, he's tired of trying to go to the question, and I felt this many times. I'm trying to actually go to the center of a question, and no, wait. And people
What
keep
is the center of the question?
attacking me with these stupid jokes like, "Are you sure you exist?" Are you sure you're here? Are you sure you're a man and not a woman?
So what is it? What is the question that he was?
It kills the conversation.
So I killed the debate, but when he said he's read 70 pages of the Quran, there are lists of people who are going to hell, and I say, no there aren't. They get a Quran out, where does it say it? And he walks off. That's what happened, literally what happened.
Well, he won't remember the exact people who went to hell.
But there are no lists in the Quran at all.
I don't
And what I'm
remember
saying is,
lists
there's
of
simply
people
no
going to
list
hell.
of people who are going to hell in the Quran. It's simply not there.
It doesn't matter. It's just
It
a
doesn't
small
matter.
thing.
Okay.
Why would you
I
ask
agree
him
it's a
to
small
give
thing.
you
Then why
comments?
did he walk off? Why did he walk
I
off?
don't know. I didn't. As I said, I didn't listen to the whole conversation.
Yeah, but you wish
I
until
just
the
know
end
the
of it.
basics of the conversation.
I don't know, he's obviously got issues.
I
So what
mean,
did you think?
issues. I don't know how to make a judgment out of this because I
Yeah, but you saw the whole. What do you think?
I don't think he did. Did you? Who? He called him a liar. Well,
What was I
because of
lying
what?
about? Oh, did you call me a liar? Well, I'm afraid he's put charitably.
Okay, Paul. Let me ask you something real quick.
Oh, I know I walked away because he was exposed. He called me a liar. Yes. He called me a liar, but actually...
What was exposed in him? What did you expose?
I'm trying to explain.
Okay, go ahead.
He made a claim which was false. I called him out on it. He called me a liar, and I said, no, I got him wrong. Where are these lists? And he said, right, I'm off. Yeah. So basically, basically, it was a car crash, and his ego was such that he felt he had to walk away because there are no lists in the Quran. He thought he could get away with that. He called me a liar, and of course now he raised the stakes so high, all he could do was walk off. So I think it's a demonstration of ego, her ego, that he had basically been exposed as someone who was
Sure.
talking out of his
Now,
backside.
Paul, let's see a
fair?
parallelism between the situation and something else. Do you remember the time when I told you let's talk about contradictions in the Quran?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you did?
Yeah.
You didn't want to talk about the contradictions.
Do you remember why?
Why didn't you talk?
Do you remember why?
I remember because you wanted to talk about the existence of God, which is something completely different.
I want to talk about you and your agnosticism.
No, bro. I'm not the question here.
No,
you were
that's what
talking
I
about
said.
the Quran.
That's what I said.
And I know that you are
Show me
very
a-
often
right.
insincere when you talk.
Okay,
Because
now-
I was trying to... No, bro. You attacked him, now I'm gonna attack you. Because you're saying he ran away, you're saying he...
Let's talk about the contradictions now. Let's talk about the contradictions.
His ego got
Let's
in the
talk
way
about
or
the
whatever.
contradictions now. Show me
You
a
want to
contradiction.
talk about the contradictions?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't have my Quran today because I don't bring
Ah.
it all the time.
Well, that's
but
not very
I have
helpful.
something... No, but I have something else. I have my KGB folder.
So which part of the world were you from originally?
Which part of?
The world, the globe.
Of what?
You said you got your KGB folder. You're clearly not English. Where are you from?
Jeez, man done his homework. I think I told you already.
Well, remind me. I've forgotten.
Ukraine.
Ah, so you're from Russia then.
Yeah, of course. Hilarious.
Does everyone say that to you? when
You're
you say
a
that?
funny
I'm
guy,
sorry.
Paul.
That was a very bad joke. Right.
Now,
Far away.
Let's go for any of them. Let's go for this one. I like this one.
I'm
What
glad.
is man created from? Quran, chapter 19, verse 67.
Yeah.
Nothing. Chapter 96, verse 2. Blood clot. Chapter 21, verse 30. Water. Chapter 16, verse 4. A small seed. Chapter 15, verse 26. Clay and mud. Chapter 3, verse 59. Dust. Chapter 11, verse 61. Earth. Which of them is the creation of?
They're all true in their way. They're all true. Let me explain how. When God says, like in Genesis, creating Adam and Eve out of the earth, it's a way of speaking of their material, lowly origin. They're just made from stuff on the ground. They're made from matter. If you want to get very technical, there's a bit there that says
Nothing, blood clot, water,
blood clot.
small seed,
So blood,
clay and
then
mud,
you get blood
dust,
clot, which is a more of a biological description, and water, of course, blood is made mainly of water, so it's another way of saying pretty much the same thing in a different way. I don't think we should be too hung up on the precise. This is not the Quran is not a book of botany or biology that has a biological description. Sometimes it uses language. Oh, you're just made out of matter. You're made out of the earth. It's a metaphor, a way of speaking, made out of earthly things. Yeah. So I don't see these as contradictions. There's a different poetic ways of describing man's origin as either as a very lowly thing, or if you want to get precise, a blood clot, and then you get the kind of more biological explanation, or water. Most of human beings are made out of water, or out of the earth. The last one.
dust.
In a cosmic sense,
Nothing.
we're made out of stardust. We're made out of stuff that comes from stars. Stars explode. Then we become, second, third generation
We're
stars.
not made out of nothing.
So we are made out of different things. We, the universe, we're all made out of nothing in the ultimate sense. We don't come out of, God creates us out of nothing, ex nihilo, in that metaphysical sense. So I think if you use a bit of subtlety here and nuance, you can see different ways of describing our condition, either in a very material way or a biological way, or made out of, came out of nothing. I don't see, if you just loosen up a bit and use a bit of imagination, these are not boring textbook definitions that you almost regimented agree they're most made out of. What's the chemical composition? Why is it talking about the chemical composition on each?
But that's exactly the problem, because that's how you show it off to be. You show it off, Muslims. You show it off as to be. Yeah,
I'm Muslim,
when you spoke to me.
I'm not Muslims. I'm
many
me.
other Muslims like you, like other Dawas who fortunately didn't come to the other Dawas.
Ali Dawah.
Or the other Dawas, the Dawas.
Oh,
who
I see.
come
I thought it was Ali Dawah.
Not Ali Dawah, not necessarily.
No, I was going to say, I was going to object to that.
No, don't worry, I won't compare you
he's
to Ali
takfired
Dawah.
me, so I'm not a
I won't
Muslim.
compare you to Ali Dawah.
No, thank you.
I don't have that much.
I don't
of a
hang around in
opinion.
bushes stalking people. He stalked Tommy Robinson. And that's when
I know.
Ali Dawah takfired me. He declared me a non-Muslim because I used to follow him on Twitter, and it was actually a broadcast of Ali Dawah. He was in a bush just down the road from where Tommy Robinson's family lived, broadcasting live with a mate of his on camera, stalking him. And I thought, what? Why are you stalking? And then I heard Tommy Robinson on YouTube the next day saying, my mother is so upset with this, she's actually got a policeman to stand guard outside the house because there's people at the end of my street who are stalking us and she's afraid. And I said to Alia, why are you doing this? This is terrible. This is not dawah. This is harassment. You don't behave like this. This is bad, very bad. And you know what he did? He says, clearly you're a police agent, you're on Tommy Robinson's side, and he says, you're not a Muslim, and he takfired me. And that's the last.
If you want to give bad examples of things Ali Dawah did, talk about the cat that fundraised when he decided to raise money on the name of some Muslim guy who died, and he wanted to raise some money from it to save his soul because apparently he didn't live a righteous life, and then he wanted to build a well in some faraway country. It was a big deal for a while. Like Kalam did a video about it. And
how much money was involved?
I don't know. He deleted the video because he got a lot of bad feedback. But there was a bunch of money involved with it. At least some, hundreds or thousands. I don't even know. But what I do know is that he didn't give back that money because he didn't apologize. He didn't say anything about it. How come you don't know about this, man? Like,
no, I don't follow him. I don't follow him.
Kalam about it.
I'm not supporting him. I don't follow him. So all I knew was that I saw him on live Twitter in a bush in a park down the road from where Tommy Robinson's family lived, stalking them. And trying to speak to them, and I thought at night, it was night time as well, and I thought, well, you don't behave like this. This is illegal. This is stalking people, harassing them. And because I said that publicly, he got very upset, and this was evidence I was not a Muslim. And I thought, wow, what an
you see, that's one of the look. I think there's a more important discussion to have before the contradiction in the Quran for now, and that's the discussion
Was that
about
your best
Dawah.
one, by the way?
No, it's not the best. The best one is yet to come.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
It's like the third best. I'm still not finished with this one, but we'll come to that later. One of the main reasons why I spoke with the latest Sunnah.
Hopefully, sometime today.
No, but listen. One of the main reasons why I talk about Islam here is not about Islam because of Islam itself. It's because of the Dawas in Speaker's Corner. Because they do this Dawah in such a low cunning way that I just can't feel good about it. I just can't let it go just like that. Sometimes, very often, I find Hashim, Shamsi, Mansour, Mohammed Hijab, Ali Dawah, any of them, just approaching or starting to talk with some visitors who do not know the fallacies that they use, who do not know all the tricks that they make on them, and try to humiliate them as much as possible in front of the camera, to show it off on the camera and to say, look at this, a Muslim guy completely debunks this atheist or this Christian or this whatever guy, completely debunks him, complete destruction. And in the beginning when I came here, I fell victim to that. One time with Hashim, one time with Mansour. After that, no more. Because that is the absolute lowest thing that I've ever seen here.
I think there's a problem here. I think that because Mansour, we're all aware that we're talking I'm not just talking to you now. I'm aware there's a camera. Yeah,
Well, of
I'm
course.
aware that this excellent chap with the sunglasses, this is going to end up on his channel, and there is a sense for many of us that we're talking to an audience, global audience out there. So I don't really mean you at all, but there is the victim, the guy who we're going to practice our dawah on, and we're going to deconstruct his faith and show how silly it is, and all our followers out there will learn and benefit from that. So the innocent victim, I don't mean you, but the novice Christian,
look,
it's going to be used.
myself.
So you have a point.
I myself was one of the
You
examples.
have a point. But
I would look.
You're not a
I
victim
told someone
anymore. If
camera.
you ever were one, you're
No.
not now.
I'm not playing a victim complex. What I'm
not
saying
now.
is, I know about it because I felt it on myself. I'm not saying you should feel bad for me. I'm saying I know about it because I saw it with my own two
I'm
eyes.
agreeing to you to some
I
extent.
saw-
There is a problem there.
It's on video too.
There is a problem there. You've highlighted a real issue, and I'm agreeing with you to some extent. I say some extent because Muslims have a right to do dawah. They have a right to communicate about Islam.
Well,
do you know
yeah.
what I mean? I think that has to be acknowledged. But sometimes we do, in a sense, not perhaps deliberately, but we use individuals who are new to it or are Christians. I mean, I won't name names, but some of these dawah accounts are so good at their art that they can. It's like doing a bit of high-tech surgery. They can cut off all the limbs and open up the chest. And I mean, they're so good at it that you don't stand a chance against these guys. I mean you, but the novice Christian.
No, fair enough.
You don't stand
Even
a
if
chance.
you mean me.
And it's a wonder to behold. But of course, you've got the victim there who's lying all over the floor, cut up in pieces. I agree. I agree. There's an issue.
But look, my point is, there's something even worse than that. Look, I don't really care too much. They usually come talk to people who are my age or older. They know what they're doing, right? They don't need any babysitting. They're adults.
Yeah.
Now, what I do care about is something that Mansour did a while ago, which maybe you know, maybe you don't. I don't know if you do know. There was this 8-year-old girl with her mother. They were talking to Mansour. And basically, Mansour was talking to the mother, and the mother was apparently looking for something for a document. In the Bible, she was Christian, the girl was Christian. And Mansour, as he told me himself, he reasoned with the girl and made her say, Jesus Christ is not the Lord. Now, that's the kind of thing that just, no matter how you
Can I ask,
shift
how
it,
do you
it
know the
doesn't
girl
seem-
was How do you know the girl was 8 years old?
Because I spoke with the mother.
And she told you she was 8 years old.
I spoke with the mother
You see,
herself.
in giving dawah generally, I know there's some other areas, not here, where I give dawah, we shouldn't really be talking to people who are legally children anyway, because we could easily be accused of, we're adults with, our skills, manipulating children. Because with a child you can offer...
You reason with a child. There is no reason to begin with.
So there is this point here about we shouldn't be doing that to children anyway, in any context in Britain, because without the parents' consent. With the parents' consent, the family is there, everyone, mummy and daddy are there maybe, but it's very dodgy.
From what he told me himself, he asked her for consent. From what the mother told me, he didn't actually ask for consent, and he didn't ask for consent to post the video, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Because a week after,
Okay.
she confronted him to remove the video. He didn't remove it. After that, she confronted him with the public, with a crowd to remove it. He didn't remove it. She confronted him with the police to remove it. He didn't remove it. Only after a while of constant pressure, constant heckling, he finally decided to remove the video when telling the mother, you better make them shut up or I'll put it on again.
That doesn't sound like the Mansour I know, but I haven't seen this, so I don't know.
You might not believe me, but I am not lying
I don't
about this.
believe or
I did speak
disbelieve
with
you.
the mother.
I haven't seen it myself. I'm going by what you say. It doesn't sound like Mansour. I mean, I know him quite well over the years, but it doesn't sound like him. But we shouldn't be giving dawah to children without the permission of their parents and the child himself. You're right. If that happened, it was wrong. You see, we're all human. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. Even you make mistakes. We all make mistakes. If that was a mistake, it was a mistake. And we move on and we learn from our mistakes.
There was absolutely zero repentance. He didn't repent. He didn't feel bad about it. He didn't even feel like he was in the wrong. When I tried to talk to him, the first thing he did was start avoiding me, doing the joke of, oh, you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist. I'll just avoid you. Then I told him, Mansour, what the hell did you do? And then he looked at me, oh, you don't talk to me like that. He doesn't want to actually take any responsibility, and that's one of the main problems here with the Dawas especially. Like the Christians, I don't care about the Christians. Some people think that I side with the Christians. I've been debating Bob over there a few times. I've been talking with Christians many times, just not on camera.
What did you debate with Bob about?
About the watchmaker fallacy, and also about some other things, like about the first cause. You know, I was talking about that with you too. You know what I mean? Different things. Different things.
I was just curious.
About how religion is a tool of power, blah blah blah. You can watch the video. It's on YouTube. It's a decent video. It's a decent debate. It's relatively, it's relatively respectful, even though sometimes Bob too uses some.
Bob is Bob.
Bob is Bob. Sometimes it's bombastic. But, it was respectful. In the end, it was respectful. There was no immediate try to humiliate the other party. There was no, oh, this guy is a fool, look at this guy, he's a complete joke. No.
Although Bob does that quite a lot with other people.
Well, I don't know about the other people.
But he does it with
Muslims.
Muslims.
Do that with me.
No, you're not a Muslim.
At least not yet. Well, if they do it with him, which I know they will do it because they did it on me, then is it wrong for him to do the same to them? Now, my main point here is, I don't care if people preach. That's not what I care about. The way you preach, that's what matters. And I made the video, and I said on video that I would not talk about Islam. And I don't really want that. Like you were talking to Will before, then I started talking to you. That's how we went back to the conversation about the Quran. I didn't engage you to talk about Islam. My point is, I want people that if they want to preach properly, show some kindness. There is no kindness. There's only this low, cunning bullying trying to humiliate people, to debunk people, to destroy them on video, and then put the video, atheist destroyed, Christian destroyed, zero logic, no sense. Look at this guy. The Christians did the same. When they posted the video of me with Bob, they said the folly of atheism or of agnosticism, whatever. The folly. Who are you to say that? What kind of title is that?
It's clickbait to get people to watch.
I know it's clickbait, but it's really low cunning, and I want people to actually start realizing it, because it's really low tricks that people are falling by in droves. I don't give a shit. I don't care if look. When I spoke to Mansour, I didn't really feel too bad about. I mean, in the beginning when I saw the video, I admit it, I felt bad about it because I felt like they were trying to humiliate me on video. But after that, I thought about it. Why does it matter? Why does it matter what people say online about me or about whatever?
Well, because we're human. We're human.
We do care about
what
it
people
to a
say.
certain extent. But in the end, it doesn't really matter too much. What does matter is that if they start engaging small children, if they start bullying people by the droves, if they start they even give their own people a bad name. They give their own people a bad name. They abuse their own people, like Ali Dawah did to the Muslims when he took their money. It's like some Muslim guy dying over here, and he jumps in front. Okay, guys, give me money. I'll save his soul. Like, what the hell are you doing, man? Are those really the figures that the Muslims here are supposed to follow? There's not too many Muslims who were very reasonable people here. For example, Mustafa, an Egyptian guy who knows a lot about technology, a lot more than I could ever know, honestly. I spoke with like Ali, a Shia guy, and a few other Muslims here. But just the Dawas are really, really low people here. Really low people. I have a very low opinion of them, especially because of the things that have been happening lately. And I had a higher opinion of Hijab because he's a pretty intelligent guy. He actually does know about philosophy. But after what he did with the ladder, like he was sitting on the ladder with Hatun. What are you doing, man? Come on.
I think Hijab is a bit of a paradox because he is bright, as you say, he's very knowledgeable. And also he does stunts like that, which are not only embarrassing, they're being discredit on Muslims.
It just ruins all the opinions I have.
I think there is that.
Both the good opinions.
He is both of those things. It's a bit of a paradox, actually. He is. I hesitate to bring this up, but for the record, windy all of a sudden, isn't it? I've had my disagreements with Mansour and Hashim as well, because they have been, in my view, complicit in potential terrorism, and I don't say that lightly, because there were people down here who were part of groups who were ISIS affiliated. ISIS explicitly calls for death of people in London, and some of the people were down here, as you know, this was last year, and I initially called one of them out and so on. Mansour particularly, because I asked him, he refused point blank to say anything about these people, to in any way call people out, call these people out, or to warn people about them, warn others against them. and Hashim was very similar. And this was a moment of great shock to me because I had a lot of respect for Mansur and Hashim, but I felt badly let down by them. And unfortunately, many other Muslims agreed with them as well, and there was a big conflict between going on. But the people are morally complicit when you see evil people who may commit mass murder, and this is not exaggeration. ISIS commit mass murder, and then Muslims who preach against terrorism. Mansur has done this in a general way. He and I have stood in front of a camera and done this a few years ago. It's on YouTube still. But when it actually comes to people who are in front of you in the same space, to say nothing and refuse to say anything on principle, this struck me as cowardice of the worst order, and also they're morally complicit, because if you know these people are there and you're not calling against them, and they are recruiting for their ideology, which they were, and you say nothing, then Mansur went from someone who I had a high regard for, went down into the shit, and now I see him as somewhere in the middle. So he's a guy who has so many good qualities to him, but some parts of what he's said and done I'm horrified by, because he's never ever apologised or repented or said anything other than what he said then. And he and I don't mix anymore. We say hello and salam, but we don't socialise anymore. Because I don't know how to relate to a man like that, who I feel is just morally compromised in the face of evil. And the reason why it's so bad is because he's down here representing Islam all the time, presenting it as a way of life for good people to follow, a way of justice and truth and mercy. And yet, when the shit hits the fan, he won't do anything about it. And that worried me, because it compromises our dawah. A lot of people see that, not just me, a lot of people see that. So there is a problem here, and we do use people. We see the next victim, the innocent young green Muslim, Christian, and then Hashim and Mansur, and I will do it too. I'm the same as them, and we will have a conversation with them. They might do it more systematically and ruthlessly, deconstruct them and have a victory over them and destroy them. This kind of language.
It's not necessarily a victory. They're ridiculing the argument of the other as much as possible.
They see it as victory.
When they don't actually need to
I know.
All they need to strawman the shit out of it. And that's it. Victory,
it's a
done
real,
and dusted, show it on video.
You're right, it's a problem. And I guess I've got used to it so much I don't see it as a problem anymore, but you've highlighted it as a real problem. And I thank you for your honesty. Even though I don't necessarily agree with the way you're speaking about Mansur in totality, because there's more to him than just the way you've described him. Just as he's not just morally complicit about terrorism, he's also a father and a good person. I mean, he's complex. Human beings are complex.
I don't know him personally. All I know is what I see.
Good and bad.
Maybe you know more than I do.
Well, I'm trying to put it all together. A composite. So there's good and there's bad. Okay, he's human. That's what it means to be human. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you think of him, why aren't you just good? If that's the complaint, I think we're being unrealistic about people. But you're right to bring this up. I'm not saying in any way what you're saying is not an issue. It is an issue.
Either way, I wanted to make a small detour to this, because this is the main reason why I do debates here, especially about Islam. It's not about actual Islam. It's about the way it's being spoken about.
Well, in that case, I support you in your to speak out, as long as it's done with a sense of balance, rather than just creating a new enemy you go after. Do you know what I mean?
To be at least some kindness in preachers. You simply look. It simply goes completely against the preacher's nature to try to completely destroy and humiliate the other party. Because kindness is the main part of being a religious preacher, as far as I know. I mean, I've been a Christian when I was younger. I know that we were preached about kindness, about being kind, blah blah blah. And I think the Muslims are the same in that regard. They also preach about kindness. We need to be kind to people, all that stuff. Especially the preachers. If the preacher is rude and is unforgiving and he just goes for the throat of the other person just because they disagree with him, I mean, what kind of kindness is that?
This is a real problem. I can only say what you're saying has a ring of truth about it.
Fair enough.
And I wish I could refute you or argue against you or rebut you, but I can't. And you hit a nail on the head. My only concern, as I said, about what you're saying is that you don't end up mirroring that by attacking them. Mirroring their own unkindness. So you become a monster like they.
To a certain extent, yes.
And then you've lost the argument.
You can't.
And I think you do that. You've done that with me sometimes. You you've done that with me a little bit, and that's okay. I don't mind. I mean, it's part of the place. But
I mean, it's a sword that cuts both ways. To be in an argument with a person who uses those tricks, you kind of have to use some of those tricks at least, to defend yourself. Or else the public, who is not well versed in these tricks, will just have the idea that you got completely destroyed.
do you know? I think the root problem here might be just cameras. That since cameras have come in, I'm not blaming you, by the way. Since cameras have come in, I don't mean actually I don't mean him, because you're probably the exception to the rule. Because content over everything don't polemicize. They just record anything that moves.
Impartial.
But the Muslim camera guys, anyway, the Christians are the same. We're there to catch the Dawah carrier having victory or defeating the Christian. Yep. It goes on YouTube. 10,000 people all over the world are going, hooray, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Hooray,
and so what we're doing, we're feeding this every week. So let's have the new victim. Come on here. So Mansur slices them all up in very skillful ways, laying on the floor. The corpse is dead on the floor. Ha, ha, ha. Another victory for Islam. That's kind of how it is.
Christians do the same.
Christians do exactly the same.
Films that do this very
now,
similar thing.
I'm not saying Mansur's argument aren't true, because I more or less agree with what he says, to be honest. But there is a kind of methodical, mechanical way that we, gut and fillet the Christian. We take out their organs. Ha ha! Look at their organs. They're dead on the floor. Everyone goes ha ha, and off we go to the next victim. And this is triumphant Islam.
Well, let's not get too graphic. We might get censored.
So, but that's my own weird way of putting it. It just seems like a surgical operation where we cut up the patient.
I get your point.
And that's kind of the medical metaphor. And there is an element of that. And yes, it exists. So you come along and say, hang on, are you religious people? Are you supposed to be kind? Aren't you supposed to be nice to each other?
Well,
and you think, actually...
I don't want them to be goody two-shoes all the time. It's fine to make a joke or two here and there.
Yeah.
But to constantly just completely go for the throat all the time, without any actual consideration of the argument, that's too much. Anyway, that's about the criticism.
And the Christians do it too, of course. And,
they do. Like, I remember a video they put about Bob talking to a guy, and they called the guy soy boy in the title. Like, what the hell is that, man? It was a guy who actually was well spoken. He actually spoke in a posh accent and blah blah blah. And he, I think he was a liberal. That's why they called him a soy boy. But he actually said some things with sense. Like, come on, man, what are you doing? Why are you calling him soy boy in the title? Come on, it's just I think very low, very childish.
I'm so sorry you've had such a terrible experience. Why? I'm so sorry you've had such a terrible experience.
Oh, it's not about me, it's another guy.
Yeah, but you've had such a bad.
They didn't call me soy boy.
We've had a bad experience with some Muslims over here that didn't show you respect. But not all Muslims are like that,
Yeah, of course.
I believe that, everyone that's good is going to go to heaven. So I'm sort of in that different belief, and I've had problems with my fellow Muslims as well on that as well. So I believe because you're a good guy, I think you're going to be going to a nice place as well in the afterlife, and we'll be together. And there's no need to go to such an extent, to such an extreme.
Hey, what up, brother? How's it going?
Shalom. I like your glasses.
I understand you.
They colour coordinate with your shirts.
I'm having this, detour
What,
of the
underwear,
conversation
socks?
about the Quran. Not because of me.
Everything's new.
I gave up on kind of trying to defend myself after the
No,
second
I was
video.
referring to your blue
Give
underwear.
up, whatever, man. Just think whatever you want. I'm doing this for something else because this behavior keeps repeating again and again and again and again. What's the topic? It can be hurtful.
Oh, we're talking about behaviour.
No, I mean, I keep seeing people suffering from this. Other people, not myself.
The problems that.
I mean, maybe you have, maybe not.
Yeah, and
I don't know if you're Shia or Sunni.
Sunni.
You're Sunni Muslim.
Yeah.
There are debates between Shia and Sunni where they attack each other.
Ukraine.
As much as when they attack non-Muslims.
You call it Ukraine.
Sometimes it's really bad.
I call it Russia.
It's really bad
Croatia,
sometimes.
Russia.
And that's what I'm against. That way of debating is what I'm against. But anyway, that's about the detour I wanted to take. Let's not. I don't want to get too personal. And just for the sake of the matter, if any of the people I spoke about want to talk about this with me, fair enough. Come here, talk about this with me. If you think I've slandered you in any way, come to me and talk to me on camera, outside the camera, however you want. I don't. I'm not just doing this to throw these insults and to be rid of them.
No, I appreciate this.
Actually doing
I can tell the
criticism.
spirit in which you're saying this was a positive spirit and a humane spirit. So I appreciate your comments. There's a problem, and I feel a bit embarrassed to say. I have not much more to say.
The Christian problem is different. The Christian problem, I would say, the biggest one, is that they shout a lot. They're very noisy. They keep keeps shouting.
Oh, that's disgusting. Do you see those implants on his head?
I'm trying to change the perception about Muslims. I'm trying to be about a voice of reason, of tolerance, of acceptance for people.
Not here.
And even
Not on Speaker's Corner.
I've even gone to the Pride Festival, I've gone to the Eid Festival, I've gone to Diwali, I've gone to all the different festivals just to bring people together. You know, I want to bring unity. So, you know...
Pride Festival actually kind of bewilders me with the name. Like, it's okay to be gay, but what's there to be so proud of? I mean, I'm heterosexual, I'm not proud of it, it's just I'm heterosexual, that's it. It's just
it's
the
bizarre
thing.
that your private sexual preference should be a matter of public
matter of
demonstration.
why?
I mean, why? No, I agree. Islamically, it's appalling. I mean, why are people boasting about, oh, I'm bisexual? Who cares? You can get a life.
Nobody gives a shit.
No, nobody gives a shit. I agree.
I'm not having a go at me
But I understand your point, I understand.
This is not having go at me for being so accepting. But people might say about me that I'm a world superstar. Oh, he was the good guy, he was the good Muslim. Because I accepted everybody.
I mean, you don't need to do that. You will never be able to please everyone, and I know about
that's
it
true,
very
that's
well.
true.
You will never ever please everyone. So just focus on the things you can do the best, and that's it. Just make the best out of it.
Because I've seen you on YouTube and I've seen you're a reasonable guy. I don't know why people are having a go at you. You're a nice person. Why would
Because they disagree with me. That's basically it. And they, one criticism that I've been getting very often lately is, Pavlov is fame hungry. Okay, fair enough. I sometimes go to the camera. Like, I think it's visible on this video, for example, that the camera went to me this time because I was talking to... Well, the guy is not here anymore, but I was talking to another guy. And the Will just came to us and you came here and then Respect changed the camera, fair enough. The thing is, I spent the whole day in Speaker's Corner here. I spent the whole day here. So it's normal that I will appear in more than one video.
I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah, it's not that I'm coming to every single video.
I will say, just to give a positive message, the chap over there called Adnan Rashid, he and I have had differences in the past. However, I will say that consistently he gives a very informed understanding of Islam and tries to debunk misunderstandings about Islam. Now, you may, but
I didn't speak to him.
Okay,
I'm not speaking for myself.
So I just say he's someone who makes a positive contribution to human
He talks about
understanding.
history, which I appreciate.
Yeah, he's a historian, but he's very knowledgeable, and also knowledgeable about Christianity as well. So there's a positive output there. He doesn't normally. I've not seen him deconstruct someone and slice him to pieces like some of our guys down here.
He kind of did it with Bob one time. I don't blame him.
Bob might be an exception.
I don't blame him because it was something really silly. And they gave the example to Bob a while ago. It was like Adnan said to Bob, this man has never even read a book about Janissaries. And Bob said, I did. And then Adnan, which one did you read? I can't remember the name. And then everybody, I mean,
that's
because
that's Speaker's Corner. Talking to Bob is very, very challenging for many of us because he tends to get very, as you know, very passionate and bombastic.
I mean, with me, he has been relatively respectful. I think
you're not a threat to him.
I guess.
So I mention Adnan as someone who is a positive way. He doesn't tend to go into this dissecting Dawah, basically, where you slice up the Christian. He tends to be more of an education, but we're all imperfect, I guess.
I spoke about this with you before. Have you seen any video of Adnan and James?
And they settled.
I mean, Adnan kind of led the conversation a few times.
James is a challenging chap to speak to for reasons I'm not going to mention on camera.
Why not? Okay, fair enough. You don't have to say it.
James can be a very challenging person to speak to. And I think many Muslims down here don't speak to him anymore for the reasons I won't mention on camera. But I will tell you off camera if you want to.
Because he's
no, nothing to do. Do you think that would scare people off down here? We come down and we want to engage people in non-real. No, that's nothing to do with his knowledge.
James is one of the reasons why I decided to stop talking about Islam. It's just that he knows more texts than I do.
He doesn't have much understanding.
I can speak about the philosophical terms, the existential terms of Islam or Christianity or whatever all day and not come to anything. Like we can just go have a circular argument all the time. Now, if James speaks about specific recitations in Sahih al-Bukhari or in the Quran or in whatever, that's a bit more useful.
He has a particular sceptical, negative approach to Islam, which, and he doesn't tend to listen really. He's got like a tunnel vision, relentless. It's not a very. It's not really a conversation one has.
Okay, yeah, James is goes very straight to the point. It's true.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to play nice. He doesn't try to be more very polite. But he's not rude, to be honest. I never saw him cursing. I never saw him
not
calling anybody names.
Not cursing. No.
If he doesn't do that, then why is everybody so afraid of debating?
I'm not going to say on camera.
Okay, fine.
I will tell you.
Let's change the subject from James.
Because there are reasons which are actually valid reasons which do.
Fair enough.
I'm not going to have quoted at my face.
I don't have the authority or the will to try to force you to say anything you don't want to say.
Well, I'll tell you, but let's just switch this.
No, fair enough.
You know what these people are doing by being so horrible to you? They're creating a divide when we should be all together as humanity. All together.
I'm afraid people won't be able to be together. The best thing we can aim for is for better answers, not for perfect
I'm
answers.
so happy I'm seeing people in Speaker's Corner because I won't lie to you, recently I've been really depressed and bedridden, and Speaker's Corner is the only place to come and get to see people from different cultures and different religions, to learn about religions, to talk to people, and it's just given me more confidence. It's made my life.
It's pretty unusual. Speaker's Corner actually made somebody feel more positive.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, does Speaker's Corner make you feel more positive?
It's pretty unusual.
No, indeed. The gentleman was saying that it made him more positive.
He started feeling better because he started coming to Speaker's Corner.
I've never heard someone say it.
There must be a reason why I keep coming every Sunday.
You're addicted? Someone pays you?
Oh no, I'm discovered.
Well, it's Saudi gold. You know that gold Saudi embassy
I've never fit in
every week to
anywhere
come down
because I'm into dinosaurs and I'm into mountains and hills.
Please can have some money.
I like dinosaurs. Which one is your favorite?
Triceratops.
Triceratops.
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
The king of.
This is a very old question.
The king
the way it's usually answered with some credibility
Translation
is
from the Latin.
the Jews are being
Like music to have
sarcastic.
more human empathy.
It's a typical Jewish
See
idiom
the human.
where you're being ironic. You're not answering it directly.
I don't see.
we crucified
I don't
the
dehumanize
Messiah,
Muslims. I just think Islam
And
is
Islam,
not
sorry, the Quran
very
is
good
reflecting that
influence
kind
on
of
people.
sarcastic
They're still Indian people.
idiom.
I don't see like Muslims.
So it's actually,
are not these
instead of being a
people. They're
problem,
just
it's actually
they're just other kind of people. No, they're still people. It's just that there are people who are influenced by an ideology I disagree with. That's my bone to pick with Islam itself. Now, the bigger bone to pick here is, as I said, about the way the Dawah is being conducted here in Speaker's Corner, which I'm completely against. I mean, again, as I said before, Christians also have their some big flaws in the way they engage people. But I just think the Dawah team is much more extreme in their engagement with people. They really act like thugs sometimes, really thuggish behavior. Like they have these factions inside them. Like for example, when Ali Dawah was in a war with Shamsi, an ideological war and stuff. It's a really thuggish behavior. I don't appreciate it. I would appreciate it a lot more if they would just more open and would just speak to people.
Because these people, they're doing these things.
no, that was the Romans. That was the Romans.
I feel like I'm suffering as a Muslim. As a dinosaurs, mountains and hills, cartoons.
It is a
just a secular person. I feel like I'm stereotyping, so I'm rabbinical sarcasm without people getting to know
where you
Not
kind of
necessarily.
sarcastically respond.
There might be some people who will make that conclusion, but I don't make that conclusion.
Oh, that's really nice of you. I'm so sorry you've had such a bad experience.
Yeah, it struck me when I first
No,
read
again, bro, it's not about me. I'm just talking about my experience to give an example. That I actually know what I'm talking about. I'm just not just making this up. Because I saw them in action and I know what they do. And when you see them in action, you can't be. It's not as easy to fool you anymore. But anyway, we kind of jumped away from the main.
Contradictions.
Yeah, the contradictions.
Yes. Give me your choice one, sir.
So look, it's fair enough that you're saying that it's a metaphor. That you're saying water and blood, it's kind of might be the same. Earth and dust kind of might be the same, but so many different qualities, so many different definitions. Like nothingness. Nothingness is the one that ticks me off.
What is
the
it?
most.
Nothing. Can you show me the reference?
Chapter 19, verse 67.
I don't remember that.
Chapter
1967.
Yeah. Nothing. I mean, it would be faster if I brought my Quran, but I haven't been bringing it.
Did you say
for a long while.
1967?
Yeah, it should be. On mine, it's 1967.
And when the man says, "When I am dead, shall I then be raised to resurrect?" does not remember that we created him before.
Yeah, it's 68 here. You
Whilst
see,
he was
that's
nothing.
one of the things. On my Quran, it's 67, but in this one, it's 68. And in some Qurans, it's
These are
different.
human. These numbers were not part of the original Quran. It's added by.
Oh, I see. Maybe they're
The
different.
Quran is often very rhetorical. You know, it's engaging in rhetoric, or it's not like a deadpan scientific textbook. It's involving in rhetoric. So the context here, where God is talking to a man, a disbeliever.
Right.
This is the context. I think the mistake to read this is kind of a scientific statement that you get in a textbook. So, and disbeliever says, "When I am dead, shall I be raised up?" So the issue is about life after death. And surely it does not man remember that we created him before, while he was nothing.
Yeah, that's the one.
That is a mysterious. While he was nothing.
While he was nothing. So from nothingness.
From nothing, created him out of nothing.
It's pretty. I mean, I feel like it's a bit contradictory.
Because there is also in, I forget it's in the Quran, I think it is, the sense that the covenant that God made with Adam before men had bodies, I suppose you put it that way, when humanity was taken out of the loins of Adam. This is before we existed on earth. And Nazim, are you helping me? You with me? And God asked. And God asked humanity, "Am I not your Lord?" And humanity says, "Yes, you are our Lord." And this is before humanity was on earth, I suppose. That's one way of reading this. And
When you could be referring to the original creation of Adam, or the original creation of creation.
it's an interesting question. I would look at the tafsir, the commentaries, the exegesis from the scholars to see what was getting at here. But usually these things have a specific meaning in that context. And I think to isolate them and see them as kind of scientific statements is divorcing them from their rhetorical context. So here we've got a polemic about the life after death and that God can create out of nothing. God creates out of nothing. So I think that's the kind of sense I'm getting from this. But I see your point, but I don't think, again, you're pushing the point too far to see it in a very literal sense. Well, one says water, another one says blood, another one says dust. I think the context would suggest, did we not create you out of dust? Did you not come out of nothing, your lowly origin? I don't think it's meant to be a scientific description of what man was made out of.
Okay, you may say that, but
I think
I
that's
have
kind of the
heard
way the
many
Quran works.
arguments saying that there is scientific information in the Quran. So when exactly do we know when the information in the Quran is supposed to be taken scientifically and when it's just supposed to be taken metaphorically?
That is a very good question. I'll let you into embarrassing. It's not an embarrassing confession. I don't agree with any of this scientific claims in the Quran. I don't buy that.
I agree with you.
I really don't buy that. I think it's massively overdone. I'm not saying there are. Okay, so some people say the Quran's talking about black holes and the Big Bang and what else? and I don't buy that, actually. And one of the reasons I don't, I remember I attended a lecture, Abdul Halim at SOAS. Abdul Halim is probably the West's greatest expert on the Quranic Arabic. He produced the translation for Oxford University Press. Very esteemed professor at University of London, just down the road. And this was at SOAS, Birkbeck College, a couple of years ago during Islamic Awareness Week. And the organisers of this invited him along to talk about science and the Quran. I remember, were you there? Yeah, you and I were there. And he came on and said, well, he's an Arab, he's from Egyptian. Words to the effect that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about this. There are no scientific miracles in the Quran. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. And I sat there thinking, now this is very interesting because he's like the foremost expert on the Quran I've ever heard of, And when you talk to specialists, around the Big Bang, for example, I've got a friend of mine, she's doing a PhD in physics at Imperial, Mahmoud. Mahmoud is a friend of ours. He's a Muslim. He's from Turkey. He's an imam. He can read the Arabic in the Quran in Arabic. He's also doing a PhD in astrophysics at Imperial College. Now, Imperial College is one of the top universities in the world. He's doing a PhD in astrophysics, isn't he, Nazim? Right. So the point is, I'm just finished.
The question, it was about different parts of the Quran, in which what was man created from. Like in different parts of the Quran, the answers are different. In one of them it says nothing, a blood clot, water, small seed, clay and mud, dust, earth. Now,
That's what he's answering now.
we're talking about that.
But he then made a very valid point about the so-called scientific miracles, and I'm saying that Alfred Mahmoud is an expert. He says when he knows about Big Bangs, he knows about black holes particularly, and he says the Quran's description is not a physics description of the Big Bang at all. It's quite different. So the Quran is not talking about the Big Bang as a scientific event. So I have Abdul Halim at C.O.E, so I have Alfred Mahmoud doing a PhD in the subject at Imperial, both saying to me, no, it's not there. And I think, fair enough. Fair enough. So your point about, I don't think there are any scientific miracles in the Quran. What do you think, Nazim?
Putting him on the spot here.
Nazim's rolling his eyes, by the way.
I do respect what you're saying now, because you're not acting like there's all these scientific proof.
No.
You know, on that, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you on that. I don't hate the Quran and I don't hate the Bible because they have metaphorical meaning. And that's the thing that is interesting about those books. Some people take them literally, which is the main thing I hate. But if you read them, even if you sometimes don't understand the message, there is a subconscious message that is usually passed by what you read. The example that was given to me by one of my teachers when I was in school, he gave the example about that. He was a literature teacher, and he was giving an example of metaphors. And he gave an example from the Bible, which is about that guy who was about to sacrifice his son to God. You know, who was about to cut his Abraham. Is that it? Okay, fine, fair enough.
Genesis.
I remember all the names. Good thing you remember that, because I just know the story. And he was talking about that this way. So the importance of what was going on was not that God made him sacrifice his son. It was how far Abraham would go, just how just to prove himself. And that will to prove himself, that will of complete commitment is the message that is transmitted. It's not if somebody tells you to do something, do it. If God tells you to do something, do it. It's the commitment. It's to expand the idea of complete commitment to something, to not betray an idea because you're attached to something you will need to lose to betray it. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting message. And there are many messages like those. If you take it in a metaphorical way, then I kind of don't have
I know what you're saying. I'm not saying that the Quran is a book of metaphor. I'm saying that the alleged scientific descriptions of phenomena we see in science are simply not there. I think it's a man-made invention of over-enthusiastic Dawah carriers who want to prove. See, this is not even orthodox Dawah. I mean, the Sahaba didn't go around talking about scientific miracles. This is not how Dawah is done, should be done from the Quran. We should be talking about Tawheed, oneness of God and so on. This is a new thing, this is a bid'ah, to use that language. It's an innovation in Dawah to talk about something that no one's ever done before, simply so that Western people can feel, it's a book of science. Because science now is the
science.
big... Yeah, I like science, therefore the Quran must be true. That's not Dawah.
I mean, I can see some people falling for that.
They do. No, they become Muslims on the basis of it, and which is problematic if that's all their basis. There must be something on that. So I've never been. Now there may be one or two exceptions, by the way. Maybe there's embryology. Maybe the what else might be just about credible.
You mean about the blood clot?
Yeah, but.
Which is any kind of scientific error.
It's us.
So it's kind of a negative proof that if there are lots of different weird and wonderful ideas about the origins of the Quran doesn't have those. I mean, it has created the universe out of nothing, which is kind of like the Big Bang, if you like. It's not saying it's some weird creation myth. so it doesn't get things wrong.
Losing my religion.
Yeah. So it's a kind of negative scientific, there are no unscientific statements. But even that is questionable because the Quran talks about Adam and Eve, and modern science wouldn't talk about Adam and Eve. So there is that apparent issue, contradiction between modern understandings of the origins of man and what the Quran says. Now, well, that's the question. I mean, I don't have. Because I'm a more conservative, if the Quran says Adam and Eve existed, that's fine for me. But in terms of macroevolution of all the other species, that's not an issue in the Quran. One of the names of God in the Quran is the Evolver. So the idea that God evolves is not God evolves, but what He creates evolves is actually in the Quran anyway. But scientific miracles in general, nah. They get a definite doubt. Now that'll set me out against 99% of the Muslims, but hey, I'm used to that.
Let me give you another example. I think you were waiting for this one.
Juicy one.
I think you know which one I'm going to.
Actually, I have no idea.
To give.
Give me a juicy one. What? Well, I don't want some low level contradiction. I want some hard,
Oh. Before I go to that one, let me go to another one. Okay. This one is also pretty good. Who was the first Muslim?
Yes.
So, chapter 6, verse 14, Muhammad. Chapter 7, verse 143.
Hang on, 6:14.
And I think it also says something about Adam and Abraham being Muslims. So who was the first Muslim? Yeah. Who was the actual first Muslim?
I don't think there's a contradiction, but okay, let's do 6:14. We've got an audience.
Let's see. 6:14.
Say, O Muhammad, I'm just reading from this translation. Shall I take as a wali, that is a helper, protector of any other than Allah? So he's asking Muhammad to say this, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Say, verily, I am commanded to be the first of those who submit themselves to Allah as Muslims, and be not you, O Muhammad, of the mushrikeen, that's the polytheists, idolaters. Okay, that's that one. So he's talking to Muhammad in Arabia, and the other passage was
743. Chapter 7, verse 143. It says Moses. And I think it also says about Adam and Abraham being Muslims. I don't remember. I don't have.
They were Muslims as well.
It's okay.
Because in Islam, I think they say you have to accept.
What's the 143?
Chapter 7, verse 143.
Just read it. And when Musa, as Moses, came at a time and place appointed by us, and his Lord spoke to him, saying, he said, "O my Lord, show me yourself, that I may look upon you." Allah said, "You cannot see me." Sorry.
Allah said, "You cannot see me,
but look upon the mountain.
Look upon the mountain.
If it stands still in its place, then you shall see me." So when the Lord appeared to the mountain, he made the peak collapse to dust, and Musa fell down unconscious. Then when he recovered his senses, says, "Glory be to you. I turn to your repentance. I am the first of the believers."
Yeah. It says it's the first with Muhammad, and it says it's the first with Moses.
I mean,
you can say it's just a small mistake in the writing.
No, I'm not saying it's a mistake at all. I think that would be we must be charitable to text and always assume a mistake. Context is Muhammad is the first of the believers in Arabia. He says, "Do not be as the mushrikeen." Well, Arabia is full of the mushrikeen, the Quraysh who worshipped idols. So he would be the first Muslim there. And Musa, Moses, of course, he would be the first of the believers because there were no believers. He would be the first one. He's not making a cosmic statement about all mankind, I would argue. He's making statements about those people at that time. So I think what you're doing is you're generalizing in that generation. You're making it into an absolute time-space statement where it's talking to this people who are pagans, the mushrikeen in that generation. This is talking to the generation of Moses, where he was the first Muslim or the first believer.
Fair enough. But I'm not talking about the generation itself. I'm talking more about the way it's written. It's written that you are the first Muslim with Muhammad. It's written you are the first Muslim with Moses.
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say.
It says, I am the first.
Fair enough.
But also, the next sentence says, "And be not of the mushrikeen." But why would he say that? Because of that generation, of that people, that was the issue. He will be the first Muslim in that people. Don't be like the mushrikeen. So he's not talking about Moses' people. He's not talking about all of mankind, but just in that kind where the mushrikeen be the first Muslim.
Okay, so it says it
Because
was
Adam
the
is
first
called
of the mushrikeen, Moses.
Yeah, Adam is called Muslim as well. They're all but it's not a contradiction that we're looking at different levels of generations, different areas of the world. So I don't think
it
it's
says on who, Moses? Moses, it says Mushrikeen, or does it say?
No, it doesn't. No, that was in the Muhammad one. So I am the first of the believers. He's the first of the believers of the at that time in that generation. Of course, he'd be the first believer. He's not talking about the cosmic all-time over many millennia. He's talking to Moses at that time. You will be the first of the believers. And Adam is called the believer too, but of course he existed a long time before that. And this is in the context of the Mushrikeen. You will be the first Muslim. The first one who submits to God.
No, I accept what you say about Muhammad, first of the Mushrikeen.
You will be the first who submits to God amongst, clearly he's talking about the Arabians.
It's visible.
Because the Mushrikeen,
first of the Mushrikeen to be a Muslim. Fair enough. But no, that's not the contradiction. The contradiction, that part of the contradiction, it's fair enough, you're right. But the part that you're not right is Adam is a Muslim, and then it actually says with Moses that he is the first Muslim. So who is the
believer?
first Muslim? The first believer.
Yeah, Moses is the first believer.
So who was Adam? Was he not the first?
No, but Adam wasn't. That was a long time before. But Musa was an Egyptian who, through his son's progeny became Israel.
Does Adam not count?
Well, Adam is in the distant past. I mean, if you imagine he's been on the scene for 100,000 years, what do the biologists say now, 150,000 years, and Adam was the first human, then, Moses existed, 4,000 years ago, 3,500, 4,000 years ago.
Okay, so there was a big space between Moses and Muhammad also.
Yeah, thousands of years.
Exactly. So why would that space make you discount Adam, as the first Muslim?
Because Muhammad is the first of the Muslims amongst the era of that generation, of whom there are mushrikeen. In the same way, Moses was in that generation. He was the first. He's not talking about the fact there may have been a Muslim thousands of years before that, a believer thousands of years before that, and there are other believers apart from Adam. There was others as well. But he was the first believer at that time, at that generation, maybe for a long time.
With the context of Moses, seeing God could be understood until they see God, whereas Moses is now saying, I'm the first to believe without seeing God.
I'm the first?
First to believe without seeing God.
Believe without seeing God.
Because within that generation...
Does it actually say that? Moses believed without seeing God?
They said there are 5 major...
I mean, he saw the mountain being... the mountain collapsing. I guess that's a sign of God's
hundreds of
existence.
thousands in the Islamic tradition.
No, it's 20,000, but then they say it's a 5 major.
Did Adam see
I
God?
don't know whether Adam is on it or...
I don't know if the Quran says that, but yeah, it could be the case.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
I mean, if Adam saw God, how come he didn't die?
failed my religious
If the mountain was shattered by God's visage, how come Adam didn't die by seeing God?
I don't think Adam did see God.
Well, then Moses was not the first one to not see God in that Islam. Neither of them saw God. You know what I mean?
In that generation was also the first to believe without seeing God.
Yeah, it doesn't speak about generation.
Who was Moses' people at that time? Moses, I think. No. Well,
It was the Jews, basically.
no, definitely not the Jews. The Jews came from...
I mean, I think it's
the
right.
answer is the Egyptians, by the way, just to get that in. Where did Moses grow up? He was Egyptian.
Yeah, because he was an Egyptian
And
prince.
Moses is an Egyptian
That's what you
name.
mean, yeah.
It's not a Jewish name. Well, it is now, but it's originally an Egyptian name. So the people who would be the first people are the Egyptians, actually. And the Egyptians worshipped their pharaohs, well, after a manner of speaking. The pharaohs were the divine.
Well, you mean the first civilization?
No, the Egyptians worshipped their pharaoh. The pharaoh was the
No, you
god.
said the Egyptians were the first people or something like that.
No, I meant that Moses wasn't the first Jew. He was an Egyptian. So the people that he's referring to, the first of the believers, could be the first of the believers of those people, of the Egyptians, or ultimately the Jews. I mean, whatever the answer is, I don't see it as an obvious, necessary contradiction. There are ways of comfortably and plausibly putting them together by the ways we've suggested. It's not like a mathematical contradiction where I say 2 and 2 equals 6, and you explain and I say, oh, well, metaphorically it means 4. No, I mean, that would be silly. But this isn't like that. This is... We can offer plausible explanations. And I found this before. Well,
I guess you can kind of avoid this one because it's not that clear.
It's not clear. It hasn't struck me as a contradiction, but if you want to press it that way, you could make it a contradiction.
It sounds like a bit of confusion here because they're talking about many different characters as the first Muslims. I mean, okay, fair enough. They say the first of these people, the first of that people. They didn't say with Adam and Moses. They didn't say that Moses was the first of his people. They only say the first of his people with Muhammad.
Because the context is an ongoing discussion. The context is clear that Muhammad is the first Muslim of his people, because they're
That's
a bunch
clear,
of
yeah. With
mushrikeen.
Muhammad, it's clear. You're
But
right.
it, but,
You're right about
but
Muhammad.
it doesn't say that explicitly. It doesn't say,
No, it does say first of how did they call it?
well, you're the first Muslim. But you could say,
First
aha,
of the-
but Abraham was
of
a
the
Muslim,
days, right?
so he's not the first. But the context is within that people, that generation. I don't see it as a. I don't
think
see it
that's
as
a
I don't see it as a.
stretch you need to make.
I don't see it as a knockdown contradiction. It's not a really good one. I'm still waiting for a really good one. I mean, a really juicy one where I'm going to go. Oh no! Muhammad was the man who takfirs other Muslims, otherwise known as Ali Dawah, the stalker of
This is the good
leaders.
one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Chapter number. I'm sure you were expecting this one. You must have been.
I actually don't know what you're going
Chapter
to say.
2, verse 256. There is no compulsion in religion.
Oh, okay.
Chapter 9,
I'm not even-
verse 29. Fight those who don't believe Allah. I'm sure you were expecting this one. This is a very
I
famous-
wasn't actually, but I'm not
famous.
even going to look much because I know both passages very well.
Fair enough.
What is the contradiction, do you think?
Well, because if there's no compulsion in religion, you shouldn't fight those who don't believe in Allah. It seems clear.
Right. In 929, I don't even look back because I know both passages. In 929, is God commanding the Muslims to force the non-Muslims to become Muslim?
It says you must fight those who... Just take a look. Take a look at
Because it
the...
doesn't say that. It doesn't.
It's better. It's better.
It's not a
Just to be
contradiction.
clear.
It's talking about different things. I'll read it to you.
What, you need to self-defense everybody into submission? Is that what he's saying?
No, it's not about making people into forcing people to become Muslim. That's where you're misunderstanding.
Well, I didn't say that. You must fight those who don't believe in Allah.
And what happens at the end of it? Until they pay jizya. Well, let's read it.
So there is compulsion in
Until they pay jizya
Well,
with willing
that's
submission
extra
and
tax.
feel themselves subdued. Yeah.
it. Feel themselves subdued. Doesn't sound very peaceful.
But they still. It doesn't sound very peaceful. But if the contradiction is there is no compulsion in religion, so are they being compelled to be Muslims or anything else? They're not going to be compelled to change their religion.
Because they pay tax. If they decide to not pay tax in the jizya, they will have to convert. So automatically they're being encouraged to become Muslims. You know, not only Muslims were doing that, obviously. In those terms, in the beginning of the Islamic Empire, they were more tolerant than the Christians. In the beginning of the
They
Middle
were
Ages.
being good Muslims. They were
I
being
mean,
good
yeah,
Muslims.
in the beginning of the
It says here,
Islamic Empire.
jizya is a tax levied
But,
upon the
it
people
is
of the
a reality.
scriptures, Jews and Christians, who are under the protection of a Muslim government. So they're protected in their rights to worship freely. So it's the opposite, actually. It's not a contradiction. The opposite. It says there is no compulsion in religion. There is no compulsion in religion. The two verses are in harmony. They don't contradict each other.
How are they in harmony?
Because the
If
jizya...
you're not being compelled by religion to do anything, you will not make the people you come to pay jizya because they're not Muslims.
They are being compelled to pay
Silly.
jizya. No, you're right about that. But they're not being compelled in matters of religion. Remember, there is no compulsion in religion. So in regards to their faith, they're not being compelled to become Muslims at all. In fact, no Christians were compelled in the early centuries, for many centuries, to become Muslims. It's a myth that Islam was spread by the sword and people forced to become. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
Does it not say something about subduing them until
Yes.
they pay jizya?
Yes.
That submission, why will they subdue them? Why does it say in the Quran to subdue the ones who don't believe in Islam?
I think actually it's a very a pluralist policy, because what happened was the Arab, as far as I can remember, the Arab armies went out, as you know, from Arabia, and they conquered Byzantium, they conquered the Persian Empire, and they went west.
Byzantium was way after the beginning of the Arabic Empire.
But these are the Christians, Byzantines. The Persians were the Zoroastrians.
Yeah,
So focusing on the people of the book here, it mentions
Sasanian.
Exactly. So this mentions Jews and Christians specifically in this. So they went to Spain, for example, the Iberian Peninsula, and what they did was they conquered the Christian overlords there. They put them in submission, and what happened was
Just the kingdom of Al-Andalus. I know about the history.
But what happened was this, very interesting. There's an article about this by a leading Jewish scholar recently online about this. The Islam saved the Jews, basically, because the Jews were about to be either forced to convert or they would have been executed, they would have been killed in Christian Spain at the time. The Muslims went in there and they remove the oppressive Christian rulers, and they instigated the jizya system, which guaranteed their freedom of religion. The Jews actually had a much better time under Muslim rule than they did under Christian rule, and so did the Christians, because the Byzantines, the rulers, the Roman Empire, it's basically the Roman Empire, Christianized, they oppressed. They oppressed their what we call today Roman Catholic underlings, the broad mass of Catholic Christians who lived in
I don't quite agree with that. The Jews had suffered some
what's it called?
some
That area of
oppression
Syria,
in some European countries. I don't think the Catholics suffered a lot of oppression from the Byzantines.
They did. They were persecuted.
Catholics were taken as mercenaries very often in the Byzantine army. They were called the Alamanoi, like the Germans.
It's well documented that every day the lay Christians were persecuted by their Byzantine overlords. What happened was, by religious because they were seen as heretics, because they didn't subscribe to the Byzantine theology, the Orthodox theology.
What did the Byzantines do to them?
Well, they tortured, persecuted them. There were massive persecutions. Well, they tortured them. They burnt them. Yeah.
Really torturing them?
Yeah. Well, you want the juicy details?
No.
Look,
I know about the Inquisition. I know about certain things done.
They were seen as
I never
heretics.
heard about the Byzantines prosecuting Catholics.
It is well known, very well known. So what happened? Well, this is what the history books say this. So what happened was when the Muslims went in, they subdued the Christian rulers. They allowed the masses of Christians to worship freely for the first time, and the Jews there in that area as well. So this was a liberation, a war of liberation for Jews and Christians. Who were subdued were the rulers. They were subdued and forced to submit to justice and just rule.
So
I think it was great. I think what happened
fair
there
enough.
was super cool.
If what you're saying is true, it sounds good. But my point is,
Adnan will tell you all about it. Adnan knows all about it.
You are advocating that the submission to Muslims was better than submission to the Byzantines, and yet submission to the Muslims is encouraged in the Quran in the basis of their religion, which makes it a compulsion. And it says there is no compulsion in religion. Their religion encourages them to subdue other peoples, and fair enough, sometimes they give them a better life, and I always advocate for empires that give a better life to their people, always. If you watch any of my videos, you will know about it. But my point is, in reality, it seems like there is compulsion in religion. In this specific path.
It's actually liberation.
Compelled to.
It's the opposite. They've been liberated.
No matter, dude. The Americans will call liberation when they invade
the
Middle
Americans
East.
are a bunch of here we're talking
Yeah,
about
they
people.
are a bunch of hypocrites. But what makes the Muslims different? They will
oil grabbing,
everybody will call
geopolitically
liberation.
No, I'm saying
their
objectively, the Jews, for example, were objectively freed from their oppression under Christian rule by the Muslims.
In Al-Andalus, yes.
So when it says subjection here, there's no compulsion. On the contrary, they were free to worship as they pleased, to trade and live as decent people. All they had to do was to pay the jizya, which was a tax that went to liberate.
The compulsion was to conquer.
To liberate.
To liberate. That's your interpretation.
It's
Not
my
all
interpretation.
Islamic empires liberated.
Oh, no, they don't. I
Many
agree. I agree.
Islamic empires
I'm not saying
enslaved the peoples they would
I'm not saying that all empires thereafter were good things, but I am saying in the earliest generations, 100 years, 200 years, that actually it brought freedom to the oppressed Jews and Christians. It also brought a flourishing of science and learning and education.
Yeah, the Islamic Golden Age.
Which only happened because of the Islam allowed free inquiry in science, astronomy, and so on. Because the Quran talks about observing the universe and so on. So not only did it bring freedom from oppression, it also brought learning to a new height in civilization.
Fair enough.
When the Western Europe was in the Dark Ages, the Islamic Empire was...
in that time, yes.
At that time. Oh, I know it's different now.
Oh, yeah.
Very different now.
Now it's a mess.
I mean,
Now
during
it's a
the
mess.
Renaissance,
That's a very polite way of
during the
putting it.
Renaissance, there were still Islamic empires. But if you're talking about the Islamic Golden Age, I guess you're right. Europe was in tatters.
So there was no compulsion. On the contrary, if you spoke to a Jew then,
that was a complete disaster.
if you asked a Jew then, are you under compulsion in your religion because of the Islamic rulers? They'll say, Alhamdulillah, well, they wouldn't use the Arabic, they would actually. They'd say they have been freed from the persecution of the Christians who were about to force them to conform.
Paul, I'm not arguing against that. The thing is, to free them from the prosecution that you're advocating is also a compulsion. It is a compulsion. You might call it a good compulsion, but it is a compulsion.
How's it
Why
compulsion?
does it say it's not a compulsion? Because they're being compelled. We need to free them, whatever. They need to do that.
How are the Jews being compelled?
That's the first part. No, not the Jews, the Muslims to conquer the Christians and to conquer the other
They were liberating
nations.
them from the injustice
Okay, you
of
can call it
corrupt
look,
empires.
This is a game of
and they brought
semantics
justice.
now. You can call it justice, you can call it
do.
liberation, whatever.
I do.
But it's still a compulsion. It's still they're being compelled
To be free.
They're being compelled
That's
to
a
free them
paradox.
if they're
That's
trying
like a
to free
paradox,
them.
isn't it?
No, but
Compulsion
look,
to be free.
now my point about the freeing of the other countries is that it seems to me like you're kind of cherry picking a bit, because you're talking about the Jews in Al-Andalus and you're talking about the Catholics in the Byzantine Empire, which I don't completely agree with. I do agree about the Jews in Al-Andalus.
If you want all the sources, talk to Abdan. He'll give you all the references and the classical original
I
sources.
prefer to research it by myself, thank you. But fair enough. Fair
Well,
enough.
he's got the references.
Look, I will trust you. Let's say I will trust you that there was some prosecution of Catholics in the Byzantine Empire,
Notorious.
which doesn't seem very.
Catholic, the Roman, they tried to persuade lots of Jews to go fight the Persian, and they didn't go. This is part of the history. Because at that time,
Because the Romans were at war with the Persians.
no, because
with
they tried
Sassanids.
to go and fight with them, because just there's a catalyst and there's a problem.
You might need to chop this up into like several
Inherently,
segments.
they
It's
say
very
there's
long.
a lot of
Good luck with the book. Thank you.
Book?
Thank you.
Book?
Yeah, I'm writing one.
Oh, yeah.
Two.
Two. Well, what are you writing about?
One of them is kind of stuck, the other one is flowing more or less. One of them is a story about many different chapters, about different characters and the relation between them. But I don't want to spoil anything.
Hang on, it's a very thinly veiled Speaker's Corner, is it?
No, it's not.
So who's the Mansur character then?
Oh, there are a few main characters, but don't get too attached to them. Game of Thrones style. The other one is about some drawings that I used to make when I was younger. It's like kind of symbolic slash surrealistic drawings, and then the philosophical description of them and what they mean and the definition of what they mean.
Cool. We'll look forward to seeing it.
Thanks, man. I'll try to have more, get some more inspiration to write the books. But anyway, enough of the.
Anyway, so I don't think it's a contradiction at all. I think actually it's a very different interpretation of both those verses in the historical context where they were revealed and what happened afterwards. In fact, the subduing was of the unjust rulers. For most people, jizya meant guarantee of freedom of religion. That's the whole point. The Sharia guarantees that Christians and Jews and other people in the book, which meant for the Hanafi school, the main school at the time, basically anyone, but whether it be the Zoroastrians or even the Hindus and so on, were given their right to worship freely. But they had to accept the ultimate authority of the Islamic State, this is true, which I don't have a problem with because that meant justice was there. If it was done properly and correctly, they wouldn't tolerate the rule of law, divine justice.
Not all Islamic empires were good. Not all Islamic empires
Some
were
were
bad.
terrible, some were terrible.
Some were horrible, some were pretty good actually. for
I
that
agree.
time.
So the question is, did they adhere to the Sharia? If they adhered to the divine law, then they would have done very well for the people. The justice would have prevailed, unlike the unjust systems of the Byzantines and the Persian Sassanians beforehand. They were very unjust empires. They oppressed their people. They were in
Sassanid Empire.
Sassanian.
Why were they so unjust? I mean, they didn't have slavery.
I know much less about that than I do about the Byzantine Empire, so I don't know the answer.
I don't think I mean, I don't think either the Byzantine Empire or the Sassanid Empire were that oppressive. They were relatively good empires.
They were to the Jews and the non-Orthodox Christians in the Eastern Empire were periodically oppressed and persecuted by the Byzantine overlords. Islam allowed them, it gave them the legal right under Sharia to practice their faith freely without interference, by law, by right, by a religious right. And how do we know this? If we go back to the Treaty of Medina, which Muhammad had with the Jews and the Christians there, and we still know it, and we have the authentic record still, everyone had their religious rights guaranteed by law. And Muhammad was the head ruler. So this is the Islamic DNA. This is how things should be done. Yeah, I'm using a metaphor here. The religious DNA is...
It's just a funny metaphor.
That unlike in the West historically, even today there isn't true pluralism because there's always campaigning against Sharia courts and so on. Even though we've got Beth Din courts for the Jews, for divorce and inheritance and so on, Muslims just want the same. Oh, we can't have that one law for everyone. Well, in Islam, it's much more pluralist. So, yeah, you want your particular way of doing it, great. You want your particular way, fine. It's much more accommodating of diversity. Whereas the West can't really accommodate diversity in this, even though it talks a lot about diversity. In practice, it means conforming to a narrow, liberal, secular norm.
It can't accommodate diversity.
Well, if we wanted elements of Sharia law, Sharia recognised by British law, everyone's going to go no. France would say no. Canada's already said no. America would say no.
There's a big difference between what you're saying
and
why not? What happened before with the Islamic conquest. The Muslims were conquering new peoples that were in their lands. There were Christians that those lands were theirs. Now in England it's different because England is not a Muslim country, and there indeed are Muslim migrants here, and I don't think they should have the right to practice Sharia law because they are migrants, just like myself.
In Islam, the non-Muslims will have the right by law to practice, inheritance, divorce, and so on, according to their own laws. There's not a right the West will allow its own minorities. So the Islamic ideal is much more tolerant and pluralistic than is the Western. Even in the ideal, it is. So Islam is much more advanced. Much more advanced. Huh?
Are they allowing those things to happen now in Muslim countries?
I think historically in the past they did. I think now you have to look at individual countries. There are many different countries. Maybe in Indonesia they do. I'd have to check. If they don't, okay. But in the past they used to, particularly in the early centuries, when it was much more advanced and much more liberal, for a better word, than even modern Western societies are now. In recognising diversity and saying in law you have a right to do that, we're not going to, even though we disagree with you, we're not going to interfere. The West won't do that. The West say, no, you've got to be like us, you've got to conform one law for all, one size fits all, which of course doesn't work. So you get like in Birmingham.
Look, bro.
In Birmingham you get the kids
the dhimmis, right?
Yeah.
They still had to obey to Islamic law in the end.
No.
Yes.
No, which law are we talking about?
In the beginning of the Islamic Empire, let's go step by step. In the beginning of the Islamic Empire, the Muslims conquered those lands very quickly.
Yeah.
Like it was basically a blitzkrieg through the eastern of the empire and through the Sasanian.
I would say like a knife through butter. Blitzkrieg is Nazi Germany.
It's the same. It's the same.
No, it's not the same because we didn't destroy. We didn't kill civilians. We didn't kill civilians.
Oh come on.
A knife through butter. A knife through butter is much better because it was smooth.
No
quick.
civilians killed. Come on, man.
Are you saying the Nazis didn't target civilians in their blitzkrieg? They didn't.
No, they targeted. No, look. You're making me defend the Nazis here now.
Yeah, exactly.
But I see what you're doing here. But look, I won't attack the Nazis when they don't deserve to be attacked. When they deserve to be attacked, I will completely attack them. Absolutely. Attack them as much as you want. But in the blitzkrieg, it was called the blitzkrieg because it was very fast. It was lightning warfare. They needed to quickly go through the lands, attack key points, key strategic points in the enemy army, in the enemy defensive positions. It simply goes against the nature of blitzkrieg to go after the civilians, to kill it. I mean, maybe some civilians died as collateral damage, but it wasn't targeting.
I'm not going to argue that point because it's getting off the subject, as you know. So back to the Muslims did not force anyone in the early centuries to convert to Islam. On the contrary, actually, there's a disinclination.
They encouraged them.
No, they didn't. Actually, do you know
Jizya is extra tax.
Precisely, maybe for taxation reasons. So there's a disinclination to force anyone to become a Muslim, even if it's a few economic reasons, as you mentioned. So the idea that people were forced by the edge of the sword to convert to Islam is a complete Western myth. Okay, so back to the point, there is no compulsion in religion, which is what the first example was. There's no contradiction.
Do you know what the word compulsion means?
You're asking an Englishman if he knows what the word compulsion means.
Well, I have to ask you because you're... certainly you know, but I want to see what exactly is the definition you give to the word, because the definition might be slightly different than the one I give to the word. You know what I mean?
There's no compulsion in religion, it says.
No, the word compulsion.
To be forced to do something.
To be forced to do something.
And there's no compulsion in religion.
Is compulsion not to be compelled to do something?
Well, maybe in addition... Okay, as you're getting all technical, I'm going to get out my iPhone. I'm going to look the word up now, because...
Same thing, compelled or force. Same thing, isn't it?
Well, compelled and forced
I would have said
I think it's quite different. Compelled is more like encouragement, more like a more light term.
Shall I read out the definition of compulsion?
Go ahead. Maybe you're right.
Well, we're all right. The action or state of forced forcing or being forced, as I said, to do something. Constraint. Synonyms, i.e., it means exactly the same thing. Obligation, constraint, force, coercion, duress, pressure, enforcement. I mean, we get the idea. Now, nowhere in the Quran, on the contrary, it says you cannot force anyone to adopt a religion. And the early Muslims, when they went out and conquered and liberated the North Africa and the Levant and so on, never ever forced, compelled anyone to become Muslim.
I'm disagreeing with that.
Fine.
But look, here, the devil is
that
in the
is the
details.
historical truth.
In this matter, the devil is in the small detail, which is the compulsion, not of the people they were conquering, but of the conquerors themselves.
Oh yeah, they were
The
compelled.
Well,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Their religion was
Absolutely.
compelling them to conquer new peoples,
These
other
were
peoples.
what
So that is
what the
compulsion.
Muslims were bringing divine justice to regimes that were brutally oppressing their subjects. And yes, the oppressors were removed, and I'm terribly sorry if that offends anyone's sensibilities. But yeah. So the great bulk of Muslims, the great bulk of Jews and Christians could practice their religion freely. All they had to do was pay the jizya to the state. Yeah, that's what the jizya means.
Yeah, it's a relatively accepting way
And
of
often the jizya was less in terms of
integrating
payment made than before. So they had a good deal economically. They had freedom of religion, which they didn't before, and they had justice.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a pretty
But
good
the
deal.
people who were conquering were still compelled.
Of course.
I'm not talking about whether it was a good deal or not. I'm not talking about
They were
whether it
compelling
was
the
just or
oppressors
not.
to get out of the way and allow justice to be
not the
implemented.
oppressors. I'm saying it was the religion of Islam was compelling the Muslims to conquer the other countries, maybe to help them, maybe to just conquer them. Whatever the reason is, that's not what we're arguing about this. Here.
You're saying there's a contradiction, that's the point.
Yes, the contradiction is they were being compelled by their religion.
Who's we? They, I mean.
The Muslims. They were.
Oh, the Muslims are being
The
compelled.
Muslims were being compelled to conquer new nations by their religious movement.
Okay. The
That's what it says in the book.
passage
You
there
must
where it
attack
says
those
no
who compel
compulsion
Islam.
is talking about. Okay. The passage in Surah Baqarah, isn't it? Second Surah, is talking about compulsion in faith. So you can't be compelled to believe in God or believe in Muhammad or believe in anyone. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about. That's what it's referring to. It's saying you as a good Jew will not be forced to believe in Muhammad, or you as a good Muslim or a good Christian will not be forced to believe in Muhammad or anyone else.
That's
There's
one,
no
yeah, okay,
compulsion
fair
in
enough.
religion. That's all it's saying.
That's one definition you can give to the compulsion in religion. The compulsion
That
it
is
gives
how it's
to
been
the conquered
understood.
peoples.
That's been understood.
I
That's how
don't
it's
think
understood.
so. I think it's mostly understood in the Quran as compulsion of the people who are the believers, of the Muslims themselves. Like it's compelling the Muslims themselves, it's forcing the Muslims to go there to attack the other peoples,
I've never
whether
heard,
they are just or
I've
not.
never heard anyone
to
say
conquer
that.
them.
I've never heard any tafsir or any Muslim ever say that. I think it's a very odd.
I think it's implied in the.
I think it's a very
Do you
odd.
want to take a look at the
You see,
Quran?
the point is, in the Islamic tradition, you've got to allow us to define our own scriptures. In the Islamic tradition, is not.
Don't go that way.
No, but I have to because we don't take texts in isolation. We read them in a tradition. The four schools and how it's understood is never understood. I don't think how you've said it. It's always understood as personal belief is not compelled. If you want to be a Christian, you be a Christian. We will respect that in law, in Sharia, and you have your legal rights, as it was in Medina with the Treaty of Medina. Fascinating. Google it and look at the Wikipedia. It actually has the Treaty of Medina there. Religious, the first constitution in history to defend religious rights of freedom of worship is in the Constitution of Medina and the Muslim rule. No, it's true.
I mean, you can call it the
up.
first one because in that time there was a lot more religious intolerance. Before those times, like we in the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire, the Alexandrian Empire, there was not much religious intolerance. They were pretty tolerant to other religions.
But I'm talking about a constitution.
With the rise of monotheism,
No, I agree with you.
the religious intolerance.
No, with the rise of Islam, tolerance suddenly massively increased because the Treaty of Medina guarantees religious rights to worship even to non-Christian, non-people of the book. So if you're not a Muslim, like you're a mushrikeen.
They were attacking peoples who were not sharing their religion.
Who was?
Muslims.
When?
When? In the very beginning of their
Can
history.
you give me an example?
Okay, one example. When Muhammad united all of Saudi Arabia, all of Arabia under his rule, they were not Muslims. He attacked them, he conquered them, that's it. They're Muslims now.
Do you know
Very first example.
Do you know you're right about this? That in the Arabian Muhammad said in the Arabian Peninsula that there should be, you're right, there should be no polytheists allowed to live in the Arabian Peninsula. You're right about that. You're right.
The impure polytheists, we must give them the final solution.
No, but everyone... No, final solution. He's always wheeling in the Nazis, this guy, isn't it? Blitzkrieg,
I'm not the
final
only one.
solution.
Well, people keep comparing
You've got to
me
wheel
to,
Hitler in.
to a Nazi, I guess.
When two or three
Because I
people
look
gather
German.
together in Britain, they must always mention Hitler within 5 minutes of the conversation.
What's happening in there's 100 years of Islam. There's a book that said if your neighbor they didn't have money to pay the jizya, they used to kill him and they go to the next neighbor and either they have to pay it or otherwise they kill him.
Yeah, that's not Islamic law at all. The jizya. No, well, this is it. That's called murder. And if anyone did that, they would be executed. That's called murder.
It's warfare, not murder.
No, you're
when you
talking about
conquer new
implementing
people,
the jizya.
you liberate them.
That is called murder. If it happened, it was a criminal act. People commit crimes. I know that. But you see, very few people. Who was exempt from the jizya? All women. Well, women. I'm talking about, obviously, apart from
Non-Muslims, fair enough.
the elderly, monks,
Cripples, I think.
cripples, people from Ukraine.
Children, of course.
People from Ukraine.
Thank you.
The only
people
people
from the Ukraine were just taken inside the galleons and made row your boat.
Well, at least it wasn't,
gently
at least
down
it wasn't the
stream
Nazis.
until you die.
At least it wasn't the Nazis that time. So the people who had to pay were able-bodied men who weren't priests or monks or whatever. So it was a particular group of people who had to pay. It wasn't like anyone had to pay. It wasn't like the poll tax in Britain under Thatcher. You probably won't remember that, but where everyone had to pay, the same amount as well. Here it was just people. If you were too poor to pay it, you didn't pay it. By the way, it was set at a certain limit. So it was a very just system. I don't have a problem with it at all. Okay, criminals went around behaving criminally. I'm not disputing that, but that's certainly not what the Sharia says you should do. And murder is still a crime in Islam. Always was.
Paul, look, I think we're kind of losing the cohesion of the conversation because I'm talking about compulsion in Muslims to do what they're to be compelled, to be forced to do what they're.
That passage is not talking about Muslims being compelled. It's talking about religious allegiance.
I think it also includes the Muslims and the non-Muslims.
We have to disagree on that. I've not read any tafsir.
Why don't we see the passage? Why don't we take a look at the passage? I think it would be more helpful. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Let's just take a look.
What is it? 282 or
right,
something?
So 256. There is no compulsion in religion.
Sorry, what's your aim? I don't understand. You bring these.
I mean, we were.
He's talking about. He's showing the contradictions in the
Yeah,
Quran.
we were to speak about this before, but we never ended up
All
speaking.
good books, it's old and they've got contradiction in there.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Right, the context. I think
This is a more friendly discussion, not like the usual in your
we're going to
throat.
beat each other up later.
Yeah,
just
we
for the
are.
cameras, we're going to be nice.
Yeah, we're gonna play peaceful for the camera.
I've got my knife. Well, there is no compulsion of religion. Then it says, verily, the right path has become distinct from the wrong path. Whoever believes in Tagut, that means kind of polytheism, and believes in Allah, then he has grasped the most trustworthy hold that will never break. And Allah is Behaviour. So it's talking about belief here, about going on the right path. It's distinct from the Tagut is anything worshipped other than God, like polytheists, false deities.
Well, you see, right path has become distinct from the wrong path.
Yeah.
I think this kind of mentions the righteous ones, the ones who follow the great path of Islam and blah blah blah, and they
Wait,
they are being compelled to a certain extent. There is no compulsion, but they.
The verse before says Allah,
tells
there is none that has right to be worshipped, but He, the ever-living, the one who sustains and protects all, no slumber. There's an amazing verse here, and then there's no compulsion to believe this. The right path becomes vague. It's very clear what the right path is.
Look what the next part says.
Yeah.
Allah the Wali, protector or guardian of those who believe. He brings them out from darkness into light. But as for those who disbelieve, there are awliya, supporters and helpers,
of the false
and
deities.
tagut, false
polytheism.
deities and false leaders. They bring them out from light into darkness. Okay, so here it speaks about the valley, the protector of the valley, those who believe, about those who believe. I think it's no coincidence that he's first mentioning the ones who believe and then mentioning the ones who disbelieve, because it means both of them. There is no compulsion in
It's
religion
not political
for both
power
of them.
or conquest. This is to do with belief in God and following the right path, believing in the one true God. But there's no compulsion in this life. You're not going to be told you must, or you're going to be hurt. But it's clear. He says it's crystal clear. It's become distinct. The right path has become distinct.
But he's saying right path and wrong path, man. Like, it's kind of forcing you to go for this path is right. If you don't do this, you're in the wrong. You're the bad guy. You're gonna get conquered. You're gonna have to pay the jizya.
It's a warning. But we're not gonna, it's a warning.
Sounds like a big compulsion to me, honestly.
Well, but no, but it's not. It's because there's no ultimate force. But it's a warning that if you don't go in a certain direction, there will be consequences.
Well, to begin with, all that it takes for Muslims, according to the Quran, for Muslims to conquer you is for you to not be a Muslim. It doesn't matter if you are righteous or not. You're just not a Muslim. It says you must attack those who don't believe in Islam. It doesn't say attack those who are not righteous. It says those who do not believe in Islam. It's not necessarily about justice. It's just about
It's a bit more complicated than that, by the way, because we're not looking at the whole of Islamic teaching here. It's perfectly right in Islam to have treaties with other states. And there were, even during Muhammad's time, he had a treaty with other states. So it's not like you are told to go out and fight every non-Muslim country. It's not what it is. You can have pacts and treaties with non-Muslim countries.
Every non-Muslim.
No, but even if they wanted to. So you have pacts with some, you have a non-belligerent, you have peace treaties, like Muhammad did with some other tribes, and they did in the early centuries. So it's not like you're going out and attacking everyone.
That's kind of what they did, honestly. They attacked the Sassanids when attacking also the Eastern Romans.
But they had attacked the Muslims in Arabia, the Romans as well, had actually excursion threats from the Romans.
But the Romans didn't really
they whether it's a preemptive attack or a defensive attack, if you see what I mean, to preempt further attacks, they went on the offensive and they completely miraculously defeated two major world empires.
Not that miraculously. They were battered down by warring between each other. It wasn't that miraculous. I mean, they had some good victories.
I think it was amazing.
Some impressive victories.
Clearly they were blessed by God because they defeated the Roman Empire.
Was Alexander the Great blessed by God? I don't think he was. I think he was just a brilliant strategist. He had his professional arm.
And what happened when he died? All his generals
it was divided by his
divided up. So that was the problem.
You know what he said when he died? When he was asked who should inherit the empire, he said the strongest. Alexander didn't really give that much of a shit if the empire held together or not. He was a little bit of a narcissist.
He thought a Nazi.
Did
you say a Nazi?
Narcissist.
No, narcissist.
Oh, you're hearing Nazi everywhere now.
No, but he believed, there's good evidence that he actually believed that he was divine.
Yeah,
he believed he was God.
His mom kind of convinced him of that. What is this?
Walk, we hope in your hearts that you never walk alone. Champions of 2019, come on Liverpool, come on club. Third time lucky for him, it has to be done. 6 coming to Anfield and that's that.
Tell him more, sing.
Come on Liverpool.
Sing it.
Liverpool. Soccer Films, do not subscribe. That's it.
Could I share one of my poems? I've come all the way from America.
Another poem, okay, go ahead.
A brother Muslim.
Look, I have a soft spot for poems. I've been fully done for my poems.
I'm getting
well, anyway, bro, it was a good conversation. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And maybe again we'll have it.
Okay, I'll listen to your poem, bro. I'll listen to your poem.
Is the camera on?
No, it's cool. Just go ahead.
Is the camera on?
Yeah.
After this, we're wrapping up.
Okay.
So make it a banger.
Okay. All of us are from Adam, be black, brown or white. Got to learn how to live together, not to hate, let love abide. Got to learn how to live together, not to hate, let love abide. Diversity is a beauty we got to realize. Diversity is a beauty we got to realize. No matter what your race or religion, walk side by side. No matter what your race or religion, walk side by side. We got to prove that we are human human, and God has made us wise. Not to hate, but love each other, for mankind to survive.
Ah, that's very good, bro. No joke, no joke. I have to learn with you. I have to learn with you, bro. I have to learn with you. It's like a song, man. It's like a song. It's very nice. It's very nice, bro. May I have one?
You know, I'm going to compose this song, and basically we have a white guy, a brown guy, and a black guy singing it together.
Nice.
And that's the idea.
Will be an interesting image.
Right. So hopefully.
Thanks, bro.
This is my first time, and it could be my last time because I'm leaving for USA tomorrow because I just came.
I wish you good luck, man. It's a good poem. It's a good poem.
So put it all up if you can.
Yeah.
Right? So
They will. They put all the things in. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Good luck, guys. Good luck in the US. You see, guys, good poem. Learn how to appreciate good poetry. Next week, I'll bring a new one.